The Rings of Power. I'm a bit late to reviewing this, or getting a review out to you at least. This finished last week, this show, but I found it a real chore to get through and to finish. But I did eventually finish it, so now I'm going to give you my thoughts on a show that I think was a real letdown. To quickly summarise what this show is about, this is set 1,000 years before Lord of the Rings. Middle-earth is peaceful, but then strange things start happening. The evil Sauron is thought to be back, and we see different perspectives start to fight back against this threat. My thoughts are similar to how I felt when I reviewed the first 3 episodes. I thought it was pretty dull. I didn't think many of the characters were interesting, particularly the hobbits. I thought Galadriel was far too wooden and serious. I thought the show overall just wasn't much fun, and the only good characters I thought were Elrond and Arondir. This remained the fact for the duration of me finishing this show. I didn't have much fun with it. My heart didn't exactly get racing at any point of this show, and it was the same theme for the characters. I thought Galadriel continued to be very wooden and just uninteresting. I kind of dreaded any scene that was going to be with her, whereas Elrond and Arondir had a bit of charisma to them, so their scenes were the more fascinating of the bunch. With Galadriel, she just continues to come across as one-dimensional. She doesn't offer much more than a stern face, and a lot of the time it's like she's holding herself back. She's talking in a way where it's like she's trying not to make her lips move very much, and that's pretty much all there is. Like, it doesn't feel like she actually gets properly emotional and expresses herself. It doesn't feel like there's any passion behind it. It doesn't feel like the actress believes what she is saying, and for a character as important as Galadriel, I had hoped they would do better with her. Pretty much every other character is uninteresting, and this is a show that bounces between quite a few characters, so unless you're landing on the few that are worth listening to, these hour-long episodes are snore-fests. Like, if you don't get any Elrond or Arondir, for me at least, it's a real struggle to pay any attention and really get invested with what anyone is doing or saying. Elrond, Arondir, and Prince Durin were the only characters I wanted to pay interest to, but even so, the plot lines they were involved in just weren't that fascinating, and they were just kind of being carried by these characters. Like, yes, some of the plot lines, they're kind of not necessarily callbacks, but almost call forwards to stuff we're going to see in later movies, like certain materials that the dwarves are mining and, making rings and stuff. But yes, it's Lord of the Rings stuff. You can pick up on it, but it's not interesting. The plot itself feels very drawn out, and I understand the slow build up. Slow build up is often good, but the manner in which we spend time with a host of boring characters to move the plot along is just very tiresome. The show had no pull for me. Like, whenever I could muster up the motivation to watch an episode, I never wanted to then watch another one back to back. It wasn't the sort of thing that I could binge, because each hour-long episode felt like 2 hours. It was a real struggle to just force myself to watch this, hence why this review is so late. My final main gripe is the predictability and the cringe element of this show. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is no stranger to motivational speeches to get the characters going or epic soundtracks to go along with it, but this show milks it as much as you physically can. It seems like every character is just speaking from like a poem book. They're just saying stuff that doesn't sound natural or normal. They're always talking in metaphors, and there's always this grand music playing in the background. It's like, I never feel like two characters just have like a normal conversation that two people would have. It always feels like the other person is trying to say something really triumphant, and for the most part there is some triumphant music playing, which definitely has its place in this franchise, but so many scenes are filled with it, and it might seem like a weird critique, but because you're hearing epic music non-stop, it just makes everything feel not that epic, because they're trying to say that everything you ever see is epic. Like someone on a horse riding over some hills, epic music playing. Someone walking to the tavern, epic music playing. Someone hiding in a closet, epic music playing. It's just like nothing. There's like a few epic moments maybe in this show, but they're trying to treat everything like it's some groundbreaking scene when it isn't. There's also these strange stylistic choices, like random slow-mos, and then just characters just start singing. It just felt pretty odd at times. There's just random things thrown in here that just kind of take you out of it. Because of all this, I can't say that I got majorly invested. As you know, I'm not like the biggest Lord of the Rings franchise fan anyway, but I still enjoyed the 2 trilogies. And whilst a few things for me watching this show were kind of lost in translation, because to be fair, it did not have my 100% focused attention, I still understood for the most part what was going on in this show. It's not too difficult to piece together why something is happening and what it's going to lead to, but, again, that kind of also calls back to the predictability thing I said. It's really easy to predict what a character is going to say to someone. Any, combat sequence, it's very predictable who's going to live. Well, I don't know why I'm saying gooing. Predictable who's going to live and who's going to die. They've seemed to be using that whole Walking Dead perfect timing strategy here, where a key character is on the verge of death, and the enemy has every opportunity to kill them, but then another character just comes in and saves them in the nick of time. I literally despise stuff like that because it's so predictable. Arendir will be in a bit of a sticky situation, and then of course the woman that he's trying to get with just fucking saves him out of nowhere when the orc had a good 30 seconds to 60 seconds to just kill him. But in terms of the final episode, the twist at the end wasn't exactly something I predicted, granted, but I didn't really find it that shocking because I didn't find the show that interesting. It did not feel like the penny dropped. It just felt like, oh, okay, that's who that is. Alright. I was wondering why this show was called The Rings of Power as well. Of course, that's not really clarified till the last episode when you see some rings, and I was like, okay, there's the rings, there's the Rings of Power. I'll be honest, I don't really know why they made the Rings of Power, if they knew the capacity for, damage and evil that they have, but they made them anyway, and they played the really epic music, and the camera, spun around the rings and zoomed in and out, and I was like, yep, those are rings. To summarize this show, there are some interesting characters, some cool fight scenes, and it looks impressive at times, but overall it's dull, most characters are uninteresting, and it's hard to get invested as a viewer whether you like the Lord of the Rings franchise or not. So, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, I would honestly say don't bother, because it's going backwards anyway, so it's not really, I don't really think it's that important. Just fucking sack it off. If you're not a fan of Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit trilogy, or you've never got into it, this is not the place to start. And maybe never visit it, just go watch the movies instead. I think this show had a few decent moments, but for the most part, I would give the Rings of Power a 4 out of 10, and on the rewatchability rating, I would never rewatch this, even though I'm pretty sure they're going to be making a second season of this, whether they actually follow through with it. They probably will, but I don't think I'll be rewatching this first season if I ever watch that second season. If you've seen it, let me know what you think about it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.